everyone, I'm Rachel here with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 244, and we're asking, what is the cozy genre? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we have plenty of goodies for all. If you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to a few more treats, or you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For this, you'll get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies, as well as access to bonus episodes, all while helping to support our lovely little podcast. But of course, if that's not your style and you still enjoy the podcast, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already, and consider dropping us a like if you're watching on YouTube. Now, we don't often discuss genres unless we're with a guest. However, within this past year, there's been an uptick in the cozy genre category. So we thought, hey, let's talk about it. And if you know me, then you know I really like cozies, specifically cozy mystery, but mystery isn't the only genre that has a cozy category. There's another that's recently taken the reading community by storm, and another that I honestly haven't even heard of before. But of course, before we get into that, let's discuss what a cozy book genre is. According to a Writer's Digest article from September 2023, cozy is a fiction subgenre that typically features a small cast of characters, usually set in a small town with a lighthearted tone overall.
First of all, I honestly only thought cozy was connected to mystery, so I'm actually in it, ready for like, ooh, what am I going to learn today? But I always find it funny that cozy mystery, which usually includes murder, is like, it's light-hearted tone. It's like, I know somebody died terribly, but hey, we've got a bakery to run.
You're right, though. That's so true. We got a bakery to run. So too bad, so sad, somebody's dead. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this was because of the current uptick in the reading community, which, no spoilers, I won't say, but I'm probably sure you guys could have already guessed. But I thought cozy mystery was like the only cozy genre. If you Google it, pretty much everything that pops up will be cozy mystery related. So let's talk about that one first, because it's something we're all familiar with. And according to Google, cozy mystery has been around since the late 20th century. So I believe that means between the 1970s and the 1990s. Am I correct in that?
Who knows? Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, we'll say it's correct. We always tell you not to take what we say with to heart anyway. But it also stemmed from Agatha Christie's works, and she passed away in the 70s. Her books date back to the 20s, I believe. So I'm not entirely sure how all this matches up. I don't know how the math is mathing, but there we have it. Cozy mysteries may be about death and homicide, but they also cover a wide range of mysteries, from kidnappings to disappearances and like arson and blackmailing to secrets and poisoning, with or without the death, and a whole lot more. So I think, yes, we all associate cozy mysteries with homicide because it's just a mystery. Most mysteries are murder mysteries, but cozies can range from any type of crime, I guess. Also, a lot of times the sleuth is an amateur and female. They can be male. I don't know why it's most often a female. I'm assuming it's because the detective is usually male and they need to have a light romance element, because in many cozy mysteries that I've read, the female amateur sleuth falls in love with the male detective. So I assume that's probably one of its tropes. But anyway, the investigation is soft-boiled, so there's no violence, no gore, and, despite the topic, family-friendly. A lot of these books also have a slice of life feel to them, showcasing a book club, knitting club, food, etc. If you can think of some sort of hobby, it's probably in a cozy mystery series. And many of these titles are a play on words or puns too, which adds a little fun touch. I don't know where that started, but it's cute, so why not? But if you're not familiar with cozy mystery, some authors include Carol J. Perry, Agatha Christie, of course, and Joanne Fluke.
It's interesting that, like, as you said, that the amateur sleuth is usually female, because if it did start with Agatha Christie, I might be wrong, but I was sure that Poirot came before Miss Marple. I love the Poirot books and the movies and the TV shows. But again, yeah, it was still, the detective was still male. But it could be that most amateur sleuths are female because the writers of most cozy mysteries are female. So maybe that's just it. It's kind of like it's just easier to put in a a female who can, let's be honest, nitpick around a crime scene without getting like shot at easier than a man can.
Yeah, true. And I just gotta interject real quick and say that I just Googled it, and Poirot he made his first appearance in 1920, and Miss Marple made her first appearance in 1927. So
Ah,
you are correct. He did come before that. So I don't know if just over the years things changed. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, Poirot was actually a police officer in Belgium, and then he came over because I think it was like the war or something. So technically he's an amateur sleuth, but he's not because it was a detective. So that's why Miss Marple came out the next. And I say this because I actually got to do an sit in the audience and watch David Suchet talk about being Poirot. So that was very fun.
That's cool.
It was cool, very cool.
Oh, that's a nice
Um,
flex to have.
it's like, yeah, if I managed to like corner him and get a signature, that would have been even better. But apparently, rushing the stage is just not done in Northern Ireland.
Well, at least you have the memory.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what cozy mystery is. We don't have to talk too much about it because I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with it. So I'm gonna move on to the next cozy subgenre. And this is one that I didn't know was an actual subgenre, and that is cozy romance. And again, if you know me, you know that I don't know much about romance novels. I know they're sweet, they're spicy, and there's rom-coms, but that's the extent of my romance book knowledge. But apparently, there's a cozy romance subgenre. Now, these books typically focus on having an emotionally satisfying relationship between the two characters and also the readers. The conflict isn't surrounded by their love story, and it's something a little more external. Yet they get through it together through, communication and understanding, as it should be in any relationship. So I might, you know what? I got to look up some cozy romance books. I might actually read romance if I find some of these books. Basically, the typical romance tropes, such as enemies to lovers, they don't really exist in cozy romance. And now, from my understanding, cozy romance is also more character driven than plot driven. They, too, are set in small towns where everyone seems to know everyone, and it's clean and closed doors. Again, cozy genres don't have explicit scenes, so obviously you're not going to find any spice or anything like that in these types of books. Apparently, like the romance Hallmark movies, if you've watched any of those, apparently those are cozy romances. I've never watched them. Maybe I should. Ari and I, before we started recording, we were talking about like those cozy mystery Hallmark movies. Maybe I should take a look at some of their cozy romance movies. But if you're interested in looking up cozy romance books, some authors, I haven't read any of these authors. I just grabbed these from the examples on that Writer's Digest article. But some authors include B.K. Borison, Kat Sebastian, and Kerry Winfrey.
Actually, I think, as you said, we were talking about the cozy mystery on Amazon Prime. There are some. There seems to be a lot of Christmas romance movies that like the 12 Days of Christmas Love or Peace and Joy, and Joy's the main character. That's what I would say is the cozy romance.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you bring those up, I have seen those movies because there are a ton of Christmas ones. You're right. I watched one recently. I don't even remember the actor's name. If you've watched Psych, he plays Pierre Despereaux. And that's the reason why I watched the Hallmark movie, was because he was in it, and it wasn't good.
No, but it's again, it's one of those things. It's usually, someone returns to the town, the female character comes back to town. She's going to take over her mother's bakery because her mother is getting sick. And then someone who she used to know, who stayed in the town, he's now a carpenter, and she's going to have to get his help to redo the bakery that burned down. I don't know. It's that kind of, oh. Again, I had a moment of watching so many of those Christmas Hallmark movies very recently when I had a dip in my mood, and they were really like pushing up even before I started looking for them. But yeah, they've got a basic plot, but it's oh god, they're terrible. But sometimes you just need terrible.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Did you ever watch Irish Wish with Lindsay Lohan?
No, because I hate Lindsay Lohan. There's something about her that just make me want to scratch my eyes out. So I can't watch her in anything, but I have seen things like that with other actors and actresses who don't make me want to rip my eyes out.
Well, that's fine actually, because the moment that movie came out of my mouth, I realized that's a Netflix movie and not a Hallmark movie. But I guess you would still consider it cozy romance. If you've seen it, if any of you out there have seen it, then you probably know what I'm talking about.
I did watch one recently called The 12 Days of Christmas, and it was the reason I watched it was because it's a repeating movie. I am big on repeating movies. By that I mean like Groundhog Day and things like that, although I'm not a big fan of Groundhog Day. Where the storyline keeps replaying because the person's kind of trapped in time. And she got stuck in time and had to go through like 12 days to get over her ex and to fall in love with somebody else. And it was awful, but great because it was a repeating movie. But that was I think that would have fallen into the cozy romance.
We really, every once in a while, when we talk more movies than we do books, and every once in a while, I feel like we should just have a side podcast that's just movies.
The Merry Movie. The Merry
The
Movie.
Merry Movie. Oh, I wonder if
That's a
people would
whole
actually listen to that.
That's a whole bonus section we could do. We could just like once a month we could do a merry movie and talk about movies. Because I'll be honest, I love my books and I love reading books, but I am a big movie fan. And I watch some weird stuff that people have never heard of, like really weird.
Yeah, I'm just more visual. I'm the type of person that watches the movie before they read the book.
I don't usually do that. If I've seen the trailer, I want to watch the movie, and I find out it's a book, I'll usually just watch the movie first and then enjoy the book afterwards. But if I know it's a book first, then I usually go read the book first.
That's
But
fair.
I feel bad because we're kind of like ragging on these movies, and the books might be great, as in these cozy authors that you've just mentioned, cozy romance authors. They might be writing brilliant books. So yeah, don't just ignore us when we're saying the movies are bad. These authors might be great, so definitely go and check their stuff out.
Oh, no, for sure. And even with the movies are the type that you hate to watch, but you'll watch them again. So we say that they're bad, but like they're good in their own right. So don't even, don't take our word for it. Actually, you never should. We tell you all the time, don't listen to us on this podcast. But here we are anyway. If you're still listening, let's move on to cozy fantasy. And this is the genre that gave me the idea to talk about this on the podcast in the first place, because I've been noticing more and more cozy fantasy books being published, being talked about in the reading community. But apparently, this genre has been around since the late 1990s to early 2000s. And yes, that is according to Google. So again, don't take my word for it. But honestly, I thought it was a newer fantasy genre because Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree released in 2022. And now it seems like everyone and their mother are discovering this genre. And to me, it seems like it's a current trending cozy genre, but that could also just be my algorithm. But I digress. Let's talk about cozy fantasy anyway. It is the total opposite of epic fantasy. There's small villages, quaint cottage core settings, no vast world building or grand adventures. Like the characters in cozy fantasies will most likely be non-human and be orcs, elves, dwarves, etc. The plot won't necessarily be as big as the world ending or an evil villain pulling all the strings, but mainly focus on the personal development and lives of the characters. And some cozy fantasy authors may include Travis Baldree, I just mentioned, Jay Penner, and Rebecca Thorne. And my sister has read Rebecca Thorne's book, something about tea. I can't remember the title off the top of my head. I apologize, but my sister read that one, and she also read Legends and Lattes, and she enjoyed them both. I don't know Jay Penner. I have to look them up. But there you have it.
I believe it was Can't Spell Treason Without Tea.
Yes, that one.
Or is it A Pirate's Life for Tea? Because apparently most of her books have got the word tea in.
So. Oh, it was the first one you just mentioned. Can't spell treason without tea.
That's quite funny. Apparently, yeah, the Tomes and Tea series. This woman loves her tea. I get it. See? Cozy fantasies. They understand, the tea. Okay, where the hell am I going with this?
That might just be you.
About? It might just be me.
We're talking about tea, apparently.
I have to admit, I also thought the cozy fantasy genre was quite new. But it's one of those things that there's probably been loads, but if they haven't been getting enough traction, they just, like, because I remember like back in the 90s, I think that was quite a heavy vampire fiction. Yeah, you've got to think that's when Buffy the Vampire was out. That's when, obviously, I know it's a TV show. Anne Rice's books were still very popular. So I think everyone was leaning heavily towards your preternaturalism and your supernaturalism with that. But yeah, no, a few people recently have been telling me about cozy fantasy. Legends and Lattes, that's the specific one. That is the one everyone is talking about. But yeah, as you said, if it's been around since the 90s, there must be loads of books out there that we haven't been aware of. That's a whole new set to start looking at.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And to be honest, I don't even know if Legends and Lattes is the book to, start reviving the cozy fantasy genre, or if it's just the one that I heard of. And now because I heard of it and it got on my algorithm, I'm just hearing about it so much more. I don't know, but it seems like more and more people are hopping on the cozy fantasy train lately. And I mean, at the time that this podcast episode releases, I'm hoping to have read a couple of these books. I'm talking about it as if I haven't read them. Maybe I will by the time, but they're on my TBR list. And I mean, my TBR list has like a million books on it, so cut me some slack.
I've just actually had a quick look at some adult cozy fantasy books, and it's like The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, and The
Oh,
Cat
I've
Who
seen
Saved
that.
Books. Oh, have you?
I've
Oh,
seen
right.
that book. I haven't read it. Surprise,
No,
but I've seen it.
yeah.
I've heard of it.
I'm sat here now looking at them going, wow, I could probably get into this, because sometimes the bigger, heavy, like, you know, multiple points of view character tomes of fantasy, which I love. If that is all you're reading, sometimes it's like having a big meal every meal for most of your life. Sometimes you need to break it up with something a little easier, just have a little bit of toast, just have a light salad, something like that. And I'm looking at these going, what I could do with something like that, just something a bit easier, just to break up the massive amount of world building some of these other books are overwhelmed with.
Right. It'll be like a nice palate cleanser. So I totally get that. But the other thing is too, like I've always loved murder mysteries, but growing up, I was always big into fantasy like Dungeons and Dragons, but also superheroes like Marvel and DC. And I even have some ideas of my own for those types of stories. But I'm like, I'm more cozy mystery and paranormal and things like that. But now that I know cozy fantasy is a thing, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could just maybe that's my middle ground. Maybe I can start exploring writing stories as writing cozy fantasy stories. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. I should probably read a few first.
It does make me wonder, is there other, or could you create other genres? Could it be cozy zombie, cozy dystopia, cozy apocalyptic?
I don't know. Probably, maybe.
Cozy western. I don't know.
Start some new trends. Let's go.
I'd like to see some cozy sci-fi. I mean, technically, you could probably cast some of the episodes of Star Trek as cozy fantasy, because if you ever watched the video that talks about Star Trek, The Next Generation, like how many concerts they have, how many string quartets they go through, it's like there's a lot of concerts, not as much exploring the world, lots of music. So yeah, you could start your own.
But I mean, it's so interesting though, too, because if you Google cozy genre, pretty much everything that pops up is going to be cozy mystery. I had to dig to find cozy romance and cozy fantasy. And since cozy fantasy has been currently trending, that was a little easier to find. And I came across cozy romance and I was like, what the heck is this? Yeah. So I don't even know if there are cozy versions of other like big genres, but I don't know. Maybe they'll show up within coming years. Who knows? Who is
Start the
to
trend.
say?
Start the
Yes.
trend yourself.
Yes. We're telling one of you guys to do it. We're not going to do it. We got enough stuff to work on. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that. Let us know if you've heard of, well, I assume you've heard of cozy mystery, but let us know if you've heard of cozy romance and if you enjoy cozy fantasy and stuff like that, because I'll be curious. Recommend some authors for us. How about that? I know we haven't quite turned it over to you. Actually, you know what? Let me just say, sorry, I'm running on 2 cups of coffee. If you want to learn more about us and the podcast and opportunities to be a guest on the show, then, please do go check out our Podbean website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. But enough about that. In the comments, let us know if you read any of these cozy genres. And if you do, especially the romance and the fantasy, recommend some authors to us in the comments, because we would love to explore that. I'm going to stop talking now. If you want to listen to more of this, we do release a new episode every Wednesday. And next week, we're discussing authors reading reviews of their books. To ensure you don't miss it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. And as always, thank you so much for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Stuffed Bookshelves. Our TBR piles are huge. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.